Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to review Hard Target, a film that is to give us the question of what is the most dangerous hunting of game. Well, it of course to be mankind. And I've gone on to have this kind of idea in a number of other reviews, so I kind of have to change things up a little bit. But if anything, for this movie, I think it is rather easy to change it up because this movie actually goes on and puts together an interesting number of ideas throughout it. And if you were to watch this movie for the very first time, it's very impactful and very fun to watch. If you watch it more than once, this movie is to really be very slow, in my opinion, the more that I've seen it more than once. But um, with it being put together by John Woo, the same guy who had gone on to do Mission Impossible 2, it's very flashy, very flary, and we, of course, have Jean-Claude as the main attraction here. So, yeah, like, this movie has to be a banger, right? So, we'd come to find the idea of this film is to bring in a character known as Nat, who is to try and find a missing father, which the beginning of this story will tell us where that story will end. But Nat goes on and is to take a chance on a almost near homeless man himself called Chance. And Nat is to inevitably ask Chance if she will or if he will work with her to do this investigation to try and find her father. At some point, Chance will go on and link together military dog tags to find a pattern of all these guys working alongside this guy named Poe, which Poe is working for a guy named Vuchin, or also a guy named Pick. And we'll come to find that Vouchin or Fuchin, Fuchin will be finding these very rich men that are willing to want to get their hands dirty into killing these skilled military homeless men and giving these military homeless men these chance of obtaining this $10,000 if only they are to go on and make their way to this river. So, as Chance goes on in this investigation to find Nat's father, he links into all these military dog tags, finding a guy named Poe, and when Chance makes that investigation connection, we would start to then have both Fushin and Pick start to look their way into Chance, which eventually has them go on and find what is their next hard target. So, for this film, it is quite a bit of fun and entertaining to watch this whole thing be all put through. I've watched this more than once at this point, and I can't help but now feel how slow this movie is, but it still is rather entertaining. Uh, I think that it still is to be a film that holds up today. I don't think that there's anything that doesn't buy. Like, there still always is going to be homeless people, it seems, sadly enough. Um, if anything, it makes sense that there is this dangerous game to, of course, be put together, because we've gone on to see it to be done in so many other titles like Liam Hemsworth, The Most Dangerous Game. We've seen it in a much more comedic direction, which is John Leguizamo's The Pest. We've seen stuff like John Cena's movie The Jackpot, or Hilary Swank's movie The Hunt. If anything, I'm sure there's probably a number of other movies that I can go on and throw in here, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man, which eventually got rebooted with Glenn Powell in it. There is also to be a movie called Hostile that has rich people go on and be paid to torture and murder and horrifically kill a person within a killing room, who most of the time is to be like kind of stuck to a chair or any number of other things. I've gone on to, I think, see a good chunk of that franchise, but I think the only first one is to be a thing that was reviewed on this channel. At that point, I did not go on and replace that thumbnail. At some point, I probably should, because it would probably still not do any better than it was yesterday. But regardless, I felt that maybe I'll talk about that movie because maybe it'll finally do something within this channel. Other than that, yeah, like I've done probably a good number of these kind of films, so eventually I would just recommend people to check out the channel. Probably look into the action genre of reviews that I've gone on to do, and eventually you'll probably find a number of these kind of films. But anyways, uh, it's about time for me to go on and say what I thought about this movie. So I would say, yeah, it's kind of slow for even its runtime. Uh, I really did like how this story went. It went into all kinds of right directions. Uh, some people probably pick apart this movie, and not every single beat or thing of it, like, you'd have to fine tooth comb this mother to really say what you don't like about it. But I would say at the end of the day, this is a solid okay piece. I'll thumbs this up. I'll say that regardless of how many times I've seen this movie now, I always enjoy it. And at the end of the day, come to find out that Scott Adkins had done a sequel to this movie, because it seems that Scott is just stealing every single Jean-Claude movie and taking that over. Um, that guy's mantle. I don't know what it is. Like after like the Universal Soldier movies, he's just going on and taking all those films of Jean-Claude. I don't know why. Um, Not that I have anything against Scott. Like I like that actor. It's just like, okay, he just basically took over every single one of his movies after Universal Soldier. It was weird. But anyways, like at least the guy got a paycheck, so I appreciate at least that that guy got paid. Anyways, so uh also, this is a John Woo movie. If you're going on to have seen like Mission Impossible 2, you'll see a number of things that are to kind of also be in this. I think I'd also maybe seen the Replacement Killers that I think may have been by John Woo. I don't know. Um, but either way, uh, check that Replacement Killers movie out, because it's not doing, I guess, well enough. It's not doing good enough for me, I guess, compared to all the other things that have kind of just been little bits and things here and there. Uh, because I just really just horrifically made a lot of poor choices, which I thought were good. Um, please check out the review Big Hit, because if anything, that also is a funny and interesting piece. But at the end of the day, it's okay if you're going on and not being bothered. For Hard Target, let me know in the comments below what's be your favorite JCVD film. Let me know in the comments below what is be your favorite kind of movie like this, as far as uh, kind of the hunting down of humans in a film. Oh, I could probably also go on and maybe compare this to like the Arnold Predator movie, the very first one, because it feels like that in a way. Probably strangely in the reverse, but regardless, it is what it is. And also, JC was also going to be in the very first Predator movie as the Predator monster, but he decided against it, strangely enough. Other than that, I think it's about that time to go on and talk about future reviews. If you are JCVD fans, at some point I was wanting to go on and cover Lionhearts and Double Impacts at some point. I've already made thumbnails for that, so believe me, at some point it's probably going to happen. If push comes to shove, if somebody really demanded that me to review those things, I would probably go on and look at them and finally get to them. I wish that there was more demand on any of the projects that I was doing, but there isn't. But that's just the way that things are on YouTube. Um, anyways, as far as other future reviews is going to go on and be concerned, I hope that I will still try and finish up the Rambo films. I will hope to go on and like I have this itch to really just cover Justice League Unlimited. I probably should have covered Justice League, but I never did. Uh, there is a number of superhero show projects that I want to do, regardless of how well I think that they probably won't do anyways. Because I don't think anybody was really interested on this channel for me covering it. Um, Mummies Alive was a thing that I hoped was going to do well, and whatever. So at some point, I'm going on and doing projects for my own personal enjoyment, because otherwise, I'm gonna go on and be forced to do projects, and I will become very unhappy because I would go on to do that fairly frequently upon this channel. Um, yeah, there's a lot of times where I'd go on and even the things that became like the biggest things of this channel were stuff where I just felt like I had to do it because I'm like, well, yeah, obviously this is a big movie, right? Like, so I just kind of felt forced into doing so many projects, um, because I really would have wanted to go on and do certain genre things that I like the most, but instead, I had to do things for YouTube. I had to go on and I had to do, of course, the action genre, and I love superhero stuff. Don't get me wrong, like I love action, I love superhero genre stuff. Like it's not like a burden for me to do any of these things. Um, but yeah, but like if anything, um, if I had a choice, like I would go on and obviously do things in a much more like supernatural way of things, and because it's just more interesting. Um, but none of the supernatural stuff is really popular on YouTube at all. Like out of the most popular of things that's on this channel, like I think the only real supernatural thing is maybe like Thor, and that's about it. Maybe there's a random show here and there, uh, like uh, the Hellbounds or uh, the Trace or Trace or whatever, um, or Trace or whatever that show was. But yeah, like most of the time, it's very rare to go on and find a show that'll have or anything that really have an impact anymore on YouTube. So uh, it seems like a lot of times I'm doing projects hoping that this will be the turnaround project, and then after I do them, I realize that I'm stuck. That I'm just like, I thought that I could go on. Like a lot of the projects that I've been doing recently were the ones that I thought like, man, this is really like this is smart. Like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do this project and it's gonna be the big turnaround, and then I'd come to find out that no, like it does nothing. It does like so I'm just so crushed. But at least Rambo did really well. At least some things are doing numbers, and at some point I'll get somebody eventually. I hope that Hard Target might end up being one of those, but I've put my foot in my mouth so frequently that I think at this point, uh, I've canceled myself out and burned so many bridges that I don't know anymore if people are going to be really interested in the projects I'm doing. Uh, but uh, but at least I'm trying to figure everyone out. I'm trying to go on and do my best to find projects that I hope people are going to be the most interested in. But also, I need to get into the new releases more. Um, so if anything, for new releases, I hope to eventually, after this is over, with me reviewing this, I'm gonna go on and do stuff like Hail Marys and Mortal Kombat 2s that recently have come out, even though I'm sure that's gonna be late to the game of that. Like at this point, it's just like I'm hoping that I'm just going to just find projects that at least will hopefully make me happy for doing them instead of feeling forced to do a number of things to just save the channel, because for a good long while, maybe too long, like that's everything that I was doing. Um and it just got to the point where I'm like, I'm doing a lot of projects that aren't really me or things that I want to do. I'm doing projects that I felt that I had to do. And so yeah, so it's like recently, like of course the projects that go nowhere, like those are the ones that are mine. Like those are the ones that I enjoy. Like every time I go on and I do a project that I like the most, it's like, yeah, this one's gonna be the good one for me. Like this is gonna, like, it never goes well. Um, it never actually goes on and moves the needle at all. Um, like the ones that I'm just kind of like, well, obviously everyone's gonna like this one, because like it was a force project. Yeah, like of course that one does well. Of course that moves the needle. Um, but the stuff that I've done much more recently actually felt um like ones where I was like, this was me. Um, like in the very beginning of the starting off of this channel, like I did a lot of stuff because I'm like, well, yeah, I guess this is popular, so I'll do this. Um, like I know this will get the numbers, so I'll do that. Um, and and here is where we are now, of me still trying to, with now too much content to figure out where to go. Like, and that's what is severely more bogged down doing a review channel or do any kind of content on YouTube whatsoever. Like at this point, I'd need to go on and need to have done something outside of YouTube to then come back to here and be more successful. Because yeah, like there's no way for me to become successful at YouTube now. Um, yeah, so it's just like, well, like I guess we just wash our hands of this. But um, but no, like at this point, like Father, sometimes where I'm just kind of crushed seeing the numbers. At this point, I'm just gonna go on and save my sanity and also just do projects that are going to make me the most happy, and channel be damned, like if it goes on and does end up completely killing the channel or ends up being the thing that saves me, great. But otherwise I'm just going to keep trying to hopefully keep doing projects. If anything, that's kind of been why I haven't been as much here as I have been in the past, because I just look at the numbers and I look at everything every day, and it's just like it's just crushing to me. Um, so it's just like, why do I need to be here? Um, because I just want something to do well. Um, I just want to find the thing that does well. Um, and I still haven't found it yet. Um, even if I get a 50,000 viewed thing, it doesn't matter because it's not good enough. Um, so yeah, just a little bit of frustration, but if anything, it doesn't matter because eventually I'll just find things that'll keep me alive. Maybe not on the channel, but just maybe me, just mentally, physically, or spiritually, just will keep me alive for another day. Um, so, anyways, with that said, I think it's about that time to just push into the full on breakdown and spoilers of the film. I am way too effing honest in these videos, as well as also uh, stupid. But if anything, uh, at least I'm still here. I'm still going on and doing projects. So here's where we are. So with that said, I think it's about that time to get into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this movie. I think it's about that time to cover the whole kit and caboodle of this movie, scene for scene, blow for blow. Because I know at this point it's not exactly the most exciting point of this review, because it's just recovering the film. At the end of the day, I can go out of my way to just say, hey, I covered this film, and I covered it in its entirety. And maybe there'd be some commentary, some notes, and just some little ditties or whatever that can go on and make jokes about in this film. First off, like, it was kind of weird when JC would go on and say stuff like daddy or papa or whatever. But I guess probably maybe that was JC's way of going on and just trying to be different here, or maybe that's just what he calls his father. Um, so maybe that's what he just used in the film. But anyways, or maybe that was just the writing choice of this exact film. But anyways, so let's get to the beginning of this movie. The very beginning of this piece has us through a POV. We'd come to find a character known as uh, Bender. He's Douglas Bender in this film. So he's going on and knocking on doors, running through this street, and there are arrows being thrusted near his body. There's one arrow that goes right near him and hits onto this wall, and so we had this assassin known as Lopaki, and so he is to be hunting down Douglas with a number of these motorcycled men on his sides. So we kind of find that this game is in some ways kind of very rigged. That if anything, it's really that this rich guy is always going to win these games because he has a whole group of entourage people alongside him, and really they kind of stack the deck against whoever this contestant is. But it kind of ruins the movie by me saying that. But regardless, that's how things are all to play out. If anything, you probably quite easily figure out how this movie all plays out anyways. It's not a huge shocker. But anywho, so we come to find that Douglas is running, jumping through these fences and having these motorcycles that are going on and tracking this guy down, following him. And so we have Fushun that is going on and telling Lopaki, it's like, well, hey, he's gonna go on and he's gonna make it to the river. You better go on. You better get a move on, or he's gonna make it. So the Packy goes on to fire off more arrows, hitting Douglas in the chest, and Douglas is to be hugging a tree, and so Douglas is to get ever so close to the river, to the point to where there's this little shack nearby that he hugs, and eventually there's these bits of gunfire going off around him, and he's dodging all these bullets, and eventually he's finding his way through these even explosions, one done by Pick with this kind of like uh, rocket launcher like thing. He has an explosive. So Douglas makes his way to this bridge, and so he's running, and he ends up getting shot in the leg. He makes his way to this bridge. I think he jumps over this fence, and then all of a sudden the bridge breaks and he falls through the bridge. As Douglas is holding on here, he all of a sudden gets an arrow through the chest, and that's what does him in. That's what kills him here. He's ever so close. And Douglas Kasploosh is in the water and dies. So later on, we'll come to find that they'll make up a way to disguise how Douglas does actually die by him being involved in a fire, to disguise all of these arrow wounds and such of that nature, which they've probably done a number of times in the past. So Fushun gives Lopaki a bit of brandy and says how killing a man is like a drug. So Fushun asks Lopaki, hey, was it worth it? And he says every nickel. So we have to pan on Douglas's body and foreshadow the dog tags, the military dog tags, which will be connected to every single of these contestants, which eventually, again, within this movie, connects them all together. So we then cut to Nat. Nat goes on and speaks with a girl named Marie, not to be confused with the detective who is involved in this movie called Detective Marie. But so Nat goes on to make her way into this house to speak with a woman named Marie, asking about a guy named Douglas who is her father, and Marie ends up stating that she started to find that Douglas was getting more and more behind on his rent, and at some point Douglas was going on to try to get a way to pay this woman, but he gave her collateral but never came back to pay her off. So Uh, so Nat comes to find that there is this box here that has all these pictures, and it's kind of strange because Nat, when she's eventually asked a picture of which that she can use for Douglas, she doesn't use the picture that was in there that has Douglas's military picture on it. She goes on and uses some other picture with some kid. But I guess that's just a part of the course of this movie here. So Nat goes on to make her way into questioning a homeless man named Elijah, hoping that she'll get answers from him because it seems that Douglas would come near Elijah's place fairly frequently. So Elijah would be very familiar with Douglas, and when Nat says that he was a Marine in the past, Elijah knows him fairly well. Um, so Elijah would break it to Nat that Douglas kind of became homeless like he is. And so we eventually transition here. So we get to a diner called Half Moon Utility Restaurant. And so Chance is going on and drinking some coffee, and the diner clerk is going on and asking Chance, "Hey, how do you like that gumbo?" And he's saying it's tragic. How about that coffee? And so eventually, the whole point of this dialogue here is that this woman is going to eventually ask Chance, "Hey, you're going to pay for that?" Because Chance, it seems, is to go on and make a joke about how he left his wallet in his other tuxedo, and Chance is like, "Oh, like I've told you about that before? Oh, so I can't use that here? Shit." Well, so we then have Nat that makes her way into this diner and is flashing a huge amount of seemingly cash here. There's a lot of ones in there, so we can't say it's like a huge amount of dough, but like it's enough. So we come to find that Nat is wanting to make a phone call in this diner, but she doesn't have change, so that's why she's putting out this money. We'll also see that there's two guys, which turn into four guys, that are also looking at Natty for her money, or Nat for her money, and eventually Chance will come to her rescue. So, so let's get to that, because after Nat goes on and makes this phone call, and asks about if Douglas has picked up his mail, and find the answer to be no, because he's having a little issue with that because he's dead. He's dead, Nat. So Nat goes on and leaves, and again, two people become four people following Nat here. This looks kind of like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, where Kirsten Dunst goes in the dark hallway or the dark alley, being followed by the guys uh, that are catcalling or barking at her, and eventually Spider-Man has to come in with the save, and then it's the whole, hey, you have a knack for getting in trouble. You have a knack for saving my life. And then they kiss on like weirdly having Spider-Man like upside down. It's the whole upside down kiss that happens. So weirdly enough, there is at one point where I'd gone on to have seen that scene numerous times over and over and over again because I think I was doing like a thumbnail or something for it, and for some odd reason, I can't get that line out of my brain now. Now that I've gone on to uh, review that now and talk about it. But anyways, so as Nat gets almost into her car, there are people putting their foot on Nat's door to close it. As guys start to surround Nat, wanting her wallet, uh, Nat tries to strike back, and here's where chance comes into the play here. So we have Chance that goes on and sees that these guys are to have weapons, but that doesn't make any difference to Chance. We go on to have, of course, Chance do the obvious of take your big stick and your boyfriend and leave. Um, and we of course have the goons that are like, oh yeah, this guy's a funny guy. Oh yeah, he's a jokester. So weirdly, we would have Chance that takes his coat and like thrusts it behind him, and I don't know why that is. Like, is that like the gunslinger thing where it's like instead of him having a gun off to his side, like since he kicks people, like he needs to thrust his coat so that way he can easily like taunt people that he's gonna kick the out of them. Like, but again, that must be some kind of weird gunslinger thing. That instead of him having a gun off to the side, he has a leg off to the side and just pow. So, because he goes on and he kicks a guy in the face, and shortly thereafter that, there's a guy that comes over the hood, and Chance kind of drops him and has him go flying backwards, and it immediately goes on and hits another guy that is coming Chance's way. So it's like a domino effect. These two guys smack into one another. As Chance goes on and fights off one guy, he throws him into this pole that has a horse on the end of it. So he goes colliding into this horse of a thing. Um, I'm kind of curious because Jean-Claude would seemingly have a track record in movies of really hurting people. So I'm just kind of curious of the claims of anybody in any of these movies. Um, like if Jean-Claude would be pulling his punches or if they got really hit really hard. Um, but also, uh, I think oftentimes like JC would or Jean-Claude here would probably just be hitting people really hard anyways. Because they're stunt doubles. They could just get replaced. Uh, or if anything, if a guy's being killed in a film, I'm sure Jean Claude wouldn't have no problem with going on and kicking him really hard because it's at the tail end of his time in the movie, anyways. So what should it matter, right? But some actors would have problems with that eventually at some point when they're to go on and talk about their times with Jean Claude. But accidents do happen. Anyways, so does it matter? Anyways, so here's a one point where Chance goes on and breaks one of the guy's arms, and you can obviously tell it's like a dummy arm, but it still is like, like this is cool. So just really just trying to do as much violent things as they possibly can in this film, and so after Chance goes on and tears through all these guys, he makes his way back to Nat and says how this used to be such a good neighborhood. Maybe next time that Nat should be a lot more careful with flaunting her money, or in this case, showing her wallet, which she didn't have. Because that's an issue with this movie is that he talks about showing off your wallet, but she didn't have a wallet. Uh, so we cut to Nat making her way to this New Orleans District Police Station. Come to find out, at the same time, this police station is having a strike going on, and so we have a bunch of people picketing, and news reporters are running to these cops trying to get some kind of some asking them questions. We never really see or tell what exactly they're saying, but if anything, Nat goes on and makes her way to Detective Marie, who is currently at this time dealing with a birthday. She goes on and has this little bun cake like thing that she puts one candle on and is wishing herself a happy birthday, but then realizes that Nat comes in. She's like, oh, I guess I'm just going to put this in my drawer. And she continues to let the candle burn out. I'm like, oh my god, this girl's desk is going to burst into flame at some point. And luckily, by the time that all of this is said and done, Marie gets the cake back out, and there's just enough candle just left for Marie to go on and blow out this candle. Conveniently for this film, or otherwise there would have been a fire hazard. So, really going on there. So Marie goes on and talks to Nat here, and she's trying to file a missing persons report, and goes on to ask if she has any relation to the person that is to be filed missing, and she says it's that she's the daughter of the person going missing. So Marie asks for a picture of said person, and it's not really recent. So the further that more Nat and Marie are talking here, eventually Marie is to say, it's like, well, normally we go on and we try to find people who have a place to go back to. Like, if anything, in Douglas's case, Douglas is kind of homeless right now. So, if anything, if they find him, where exactly is he going to go? Back to being homeless? Marie goes on and tells Nat to start looking in shelters or a number of places before really going on and actually filing a report here. So, it's kind of the runaround. Um, so, but the big takeaway is Marie telling by the end of all this that Nat needs to go on and find a specific person that'll help her guide her way through town, or if anything, Marie's going to go on and realize that Nat is going to be filing a missing report on herself. So, so Nat leaves and Marie blows out the candle. We now make our way to Chance, who is to find this site that is shipping off a number of people to work on boats, it seems. Kind of like in the there are certain places where you go on and you, like, I guess you stop at this like Home Depot, and there's a number of guys just waiting out there for a construction job or something like that. Like, I've seen movies of that happening, and it's very strange and weird, and but I guess it happens from time to time. So strange, but I guess true. So so Chance is going on at this site and hoping that his name will get called so that way he will be shipped off on this boat to make money. And so Chance is just waiting for his name to get called. And so while that's going on, Nat is to be fortunate enough to try and find where Chance is to be in order to ask him the question, hey, yeah, like you look like a guy that can handle yourself well. How about you go on, you work with me, and I'll pay you, and we'll go together and do this investigation of trying to find a missing person that I'm looking for. So, chances to go on and be like, well, I'd love to try to help you, but if anything, I'm going to be very busy. And he means long distance busy because he's going to try to get onto this ship. So, Chance goes on and he uh, talks to this guy who's hiring these guys onto this ship. And so they mentioned about how Chance had a trouble with a captain prior, and if anything, also there seems to be an issue with fees that Chance needs to pay $217 for. Chance goes on to say, it's like, well, that's why I'm trying to get this job so that way I can pay for these fees. And uh, the hiring guy is like, no, 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 no. Like, it doesn't work that way. So if you go on and you can give me this money because the ship doesn't sail for another week yet, then I will go on and I will grant you the ability of getting on the ship once you pay these dues. So after hearing that, Chance is to mysteriously appear in front of Natalie's car as she's trying to leave this area. So, as these forklifting guys are moving these crates around, we would then all of a sudden see Chance that just appears like magic in front of Nat, like, hey. So, Chance goes on to ask Nat what exactly is the reasoning that this girl is trying to find this guy for. Is it money? Like, what is it for? And she's like, no, it's just my father. And so Chance is like, okay, like this seems reasonable. I'll go on and I'll take this job. So Chance says, hey, I want to work with you for 2 days. You'll pay me $217 exactly, and I'll help you. So Natalie says, fine, good, you'll be the driver. And Chance is like, no, I don't have a license, so you'll drive. So we take the time here to get kind of a little bit more backstory of both of these characters, uh, where they go on and they see what their names are, and Chance bejokingly says that this girl's weird that she has the name of a gnat of a bug. And in all honesty, like, look at the movie of Uncle Bug or Uncle Bug, Uncle Buck, uh, where yeah, the guy is to have that same kind of similar name of of uh of Bug or something like that, where it's like yeah, it's like hey, why are you called that? It's a goofy name. But anyways, so uh we have Nat that goes on to say it's like well, it's short for Natasha, and how exactly could you have gotten a name like Chance? And so Chance mentions how like well his mother took a chance on him, so yeah, that's where he got the name from. So they make their way to this shelter to look for the father, and because they make their way to Our Lady of Charity Mission. So there's a large number of homeless men that are kind of lined up, and so as they make their way, both Chance and both Nat, they meet up with Elijah again. And this time around, Elijah has some information of Nat that is going to help her in finding where her father could be. Elijah goes on to explain about how he was able to find a sleeping bag that actually had her father Douglas's name on it. And with that, there's a shopping cart that has a number of seemingly Douglas's possessions. And she opens up this briefcase that has a number of letters that has his name on it and pictures that has his face on it. And also, there is to be a number of flyers that are to be from all of these like call girl uh, or nude shows. And Chance immediately tells Nat, "Hey, like, don't go on and don't think weird of your father. If anything, a lot of guys go on and they hand these flyers out so they can make money." Um, and Elijah's like, "Well, yeah, like if anything, like it's a common thing to do around here." And there's a guy named Poe who would go on to, of course, hire guys like Douglas to do this kind of job. So we then cut to both Chance and Nat making their way to Poe's service to try and figure things out. So, as both Chance and Nat meet up with Poe, and Poe is saying to Chance, like, "Oh yeah, I thought you were gonna go on and make for a ship. Why are you still here?" And Chance is like, "No, I thought I'd stick around to become mayor." so so Nat goes on to explain how she's looking to find Douglas Binder, and Poe explains that he is to have never heard of him. The more that this guy is to pretend that this guy doesn't exist, they know better. It's like, hey, he has these flyers that obviously point that he's working for you, so come on. Like, uh, Poe goes on and explains that he's not good with names. It's like, well, hey, we have a photograph. Would a photograph kind of jog your memory? All of a sudden, in the background, we have Pick. So Pick is talking to Poe and mentioning like, "Oh, I didn't know you had company," and that kind of kills the conversation right there. Chance goes on to mention to Pick that they were just leaving, and so they do. As Nat and Chance make their way to this car, conveniently there's a police officer that meets them there that eventually will explain to them that Natalie's father or Natasha's father is dead. Because the next thing they will do is they will make their way to this police station, to the morgue, to ID or be told that there was a positive ID of Nat's father. Because if anything, there's no way to identify him. Because if anything, they needed dental or medical records because of how Douglas's body was in a fire, and of course there was nothing but uh, ashen bones. So they come to find that there was a an accidental fire going on in some location somewhere, and so eventually through all this, they would go on and be given the file of Douglas, his medical file, and eventually at some point here is where I think that Chance will start to make the whole dog tag connection. But if anything, he'll come to find that the dog tags like don't really make sense. So if anything, Chance goes on and investigates that these dog tags were to go on and have a arrow be put through them, and so that's what somebody was trying to cover up or trying to hide. And so we now have Poe. Poe ends up crashing onto his bed to be awoken by none other than Pick. Pick goes on and kind of just slaps him or kind of like jabs him into the chest, waking him up. And so, Pick, ever curious of what Poe had talked with both Chance and Nat, because these guys were looking in to the man that they just had recently killed. So, Pick goes on to take a pair of scissors to Poe's head, and we also come to find that Mr. Fuchin is to have made his way to also ask Poe what exactly that these people were after. Because definitively, Douglas was not the common guy that would be enrolled into a game like this because he has a family. And since the family is going on and looking for Douglas, this is what is going to gain trouble for this game here. And eventually, Fusion will eventually explain all that. And shortly thereafter, Pick will go on and slice open Poe's ear while that whole conversation is going down. So, Fusion, by the end of it, tells Poe next time around for them to be given the guy that they asked for, um, so that way uh, things don't start getting worse for them. So Fusion hands him a big, huge, sweaty hand of money, and then dunks his hand into a fish tank and cleans his hand. Pick says the next time around he'll cut into Poe and make a steak out of him, and throws the scissors on a wall and leaves. So we have Chance, we have Nat, and so Nat is kind of brokenhearted by the fact that that Douglas didn't reach out to her, that he was living in a shopping cart, he was homeless, and Chance says, "Well, yeah, like it's really tough for a guy like that to reach out, like." And so the guy would rather be homeless than go on and ask his family for help. And uh so if anything, here's where we have Fusion. I'm gonna butcher this name every single time I have to say it. I feel very much wanting to just say Emil, which is the guy's first name. Uh, so I'll probably go with that. I'll probably lean into that for the rest of this review. So Emil is looking at Chance's record and realizing that he's a silver star, whatever that means. I have no idea. I'm not that well versed in military stuff. My dad is 20 years in the Navy, but heaven forbid I really know enough about military stuff that can. Every once in a while, like if I watch a submarine movie, I'll know a good enough number of things to get by. Um, but yeah, military stuff just kind of gets lost by me. So if anything, if anybody has some military experience, let me know in the comments below what a silver star really actually means. Um, I think for a lot of times in a lot of movies, they go on and they have all these like awards that military people get, and they assume that us as an audience knows what that is, but we have no idea. Or maybe they just make it up for the film. Anyways, uh, so as they start reading off Chance's resume and start talking about how also he had a prior captain that was smuggling substances, and so Chance threw him overboard. So that was the whole story from before about that whole captain issue, and ever since that had happened, he had been looking for work ever since because, if anything, it would be very hard for him to go on and make a career after that whole incident, even though he was kind of right for doing it. It doesn't matter. So, uh, Emil is basically looking at Chance as a guy that should not be underestimated, and if anything, uh, Chance is looking at this medical report and starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together by looking at the dog tags and looking at his own and being like, yeah, there's a connection there. So, so Pick is curious if he should be giving soon Chance a visit, and instead Emil is like, no, we'll just send guys after him to hope that he'll get the hint that he should be hitting the bricks and or he should be making his way out of town. So as Chance goes on to find this ash pile, he finds dog tags from an area that obviously was the area that Douglas had gotten burnt, and the dog tags have weird, strange holes in them. So he's like, bingo. So here's where we have two men that go on and start attacking Chance here. They go on and they have this like weird, strange, like dog pound people have this kind of weaponry where it's kind of this stick, and by the end of it, there's this like rope thing that you can kind of restrain somebody with or restrain a dog with. So if you ever watch the movie Turner and Hooch, it has the same kind of thing for dogs, where it's but they use it here for Van Damme. So the guys throw this rope with this stick to then choke uh, Chance here, and then Chance gets knocked over, and Chance tries to fight them off, but the numbers game starts to get too much. The two guys go on and tell Chance that if anything, for him to get out of Dodge and to basically tell his girlfriend to point herself north and and step on the gas. So Chance, even though he was getting beat up by two men, he was the one that ends up getting arrested here and makes his way into the police station to talk to Detective Marie. So Detective Marie is saying how Chance here is to be seemingly attracted to violence, and Chance doesn't understand what he was arrested for, besides, I guess, getting beaten up without a license, which I thought was kind of a funny joke. So Nat makes her way to the police station, I guess, to bail out Chance. I don't know what else she could really be there for. Maybe she was to be called to be aware of what Chance was being arrested for. Any number of things could help us understand why Nat is here. So Chance goes on and looks at uh, so Nat looks at Chance's face and says how awful he looks. And we have Chance here that goes on and says to Nat, it's like, darling, you hurt my feelings. Actually, some decent comedy here going on with Jean-Claude. And, like, it's not all just, like it's kind of nice, like, to actually see, because very rarely, like, I don't think that Jean-Claude does enough comedy in his films, and I wish he would probably do them a lot more. Um, if anything, I think more often he plays the more kind of silent guy, or he plays the guy that doesn't have a lot of lines in his films, or I don't know, like, if anything, I guess maybe there is uh, some films that I probably could go on and say that, yeah, he probably does have some good jokes and one liners and whatever. But yeah, like, I wish there were more often. Anyways, so Chance goes on and brings up the dog tags to Marie, and mentioned how usually dog tags come in twos, and chances to bring up the holy dog tags and how it just seems unusual. But if anything, the dog tags are to be linked to these missing military men. But anyways, so eventually there'll be a lot more of them fairly soon. So Chance says to Nat that Natalie's father did not die in a fire, that he was murdered, and then there was a cover up of how he died. So Maria is very confused why anybody would go to trouble of killing a homeless man of all people. Uh, but Marie is to say that regardless of how slow things are to be working in this police station, um, and Marie probably getting a new autopsy on Douglas's body, that maybe uh, there is going to be a case that they can put together for Douglas in to investigating what had happened to him. So Nat and Chance leaves, and Nat is hoping that Chance is going to go to the doctor, and Chance wants nothing to do with it. So now we cut to Poe, who's getting a phone call, and then shortly talking to Elijah. as he's going to be the next contestant on Try to Collect $10,000 or die trying to make it to the river again. So, uh, Poe is to talk about Elijah's experience and is telling him about how he'll get paid just for uh, signing up for whatever be this next project. That'll get $100 just for filling out this paper. And if anything, there's going to be a lot more money if he continues on to be accepted for what this new job is. So Poe goes on and asks Elijah if he has any family or friends whatsoever that are looking for him. And Elijah says no, he's got nobody. And Poe's like, perfect, because you're going to be the next contestant on Guess Who's Going to Die. So Poe is going on and pianoing his way to his piano. And so we then would go on and bring a guy named Mr. Zenon and have him to have a large amount of money to these guys' account ahead of time, because eventually there'll be the whole reasoning for why they go on and they get paid ahead of time, which they'll bring up at some point within this film. So Pick brings in Zenon to speak with Emil, and they talk about alibis, they talk about disposable body, and then all this guy will have the easy task to do of pointing and shooting, and they'll take care of everything else. So Pick gives Emil the choice of which that Zenon made, which of course will be Elijah. And so Emil talks to Zenon and mentions about how they would go on and choose from so many soldiers and policemen and fire pilots and have the government to have skilled and trained their uh, their contestants on this whole game of thing. And so Zenon goes on and asks if these people are to go on and be just volunteers of all this. And so Emil goes on and talks about how the people they pick are hunting combat veterans and that they have the skills and everything like that. Um, and they also talk about how Dr. Morton is here, and he'll go on and he'll cover up all the autopsies and like trying to make this guy rest assured that they're going to dot all the I's and cross all the T's to make this guy never be connected back with this murder. We'll see more about Dr. Morton here at some point in this movie later. Okay, so uh, we then cut to Chance making his way to this massage parlor as he's talking to this woman behind the counter. and asking, um, and this woman is asking Chance what exactly he's here for, a secret mission. And so Chance is to sneak into Poe's room as he's getting currently massaged. What a weird coincidence that Chance is to go on and figure out where Poe is to put the hurt on him. So, as this woman is massaging Poe down as he is laying down to get massaged, we then have the female hands trading in with Chance's, and then Chance's to thrust Poe down in between these two uh, like headrest like things, so he's kind of pushed here with his face as hard as he can. So Chance notices that Poe is seemingly missing a year from the last time that they've gone on and talked. So if anything, um, Poe has to pay attention a little bit better. So Poe knows, or Chance knows that Poe knew who was to have gone on and sent those apes after him, the guys that attacked him. So, and Poe ends up talking about Pick, who he calls Van Cleef. And the more that Chance tries to get information out of Poe about Van Cleef, Poe is like, well, hey, this guy is going to kill me if I tell you anything more. And so Chance is like, well, okay, tell Van Cleef that I'm looking for him, and I want to find out who killed Douglas. And so Chance leaves. We then cut to Dr. Morton, and he's speaking with Detective Mary. So Detective Mary is wanting for Dr. Morton to do another autopsy, and eventually this is done because she is to say that his death is to be ruled a homicide. So, if anything, the next thing we see is Dr. Morton in his fireplace, taking files and burning them, to then be met by Emil. So, as Morton is coughing, Emil brings that up and like, hey, you should do something about that cough. So Morton is to mention to Emil about how they have a big problem. We have Emil that has this paper opener, and he weirdly slides it underneath the table, having us assume that he's going to go on and he's going to himself kill Dr. Morton, or at least have a weapon on his side just in case if things get hairy. So, to make us assume that Emil himself is going to kill Morton here, but what ends up happening is quite something different. So, Morton is to be talking about how they have a big problem, and Emil is realizing how they've probably overstayed their welcome in New Orleans, that maybe they should get back out of here. So, as there is a knock at the door, we would of course have Morton, who needs to make his way to the doorway. As Morton looks into the eye hole, there's a gun that goes through it and blasts into Morton's head, killing him. Emil goes on and cleans the letter opener, so that way there's no prints behind. And we'd have Pick that makes his way inside the door, and Emil is talking about how they should go to a place a little less tropical. if anything, um, they need to make their way to places like Eastern Europe or this or that, because eventually they'll go on and they'll be able to work there a lot longer for a good number of years. So now we cut to Emil and Pick, who have made their way to Elijah at what looks like a railroad track of some kind, or like a railroad station. So we would go on to, of course, have Emil proposition Elijah with the $10,000 and playing this whole game. Because if anything, Emil goes on and is to persuade him. It's like, well, hey, like just think of the money. Like, if anything, you'll finally be able to get a new pair of clothes. You'll clean yourself up. And Elijah goes on at some points and says bullshit and all kinds of things. And Emil is like, all you need to do is just make it to the river. You'll be $10,000 richer. So we would probably think that Emil saying whatever he needs to say to Elijah here is probably something that he's speech wise probably said to a number of other people in the exact same way. We never actually get to see that in the movie, but if anything, I would just feel like this would be a line that he's probably said somewhere, and I wish that Pick would have gone on and said something like that. That would have lent to that, so that way there's history there. So Elijah is to be given this what looks like a belt uh, full of money, and he straps it around his chest, which immediately tells us that the game is on. So Mr. Zenon gets his gun ready as he gets out of the car, and so Emil is to go on and explain to Elijah that he gets a 5 minute head start, and we would also go on to have Zenon that is to get his gun ready to target Elijah, and Emil says, "Hey, um, like this is New Orleans, Mister Zenon. Like let's get to kind of a little bit of off skirts, and then we'll." So as Elijah starts running, there's two motorcyclists that are chasing after him. Elijah decides that he's going to climb this fence to get in this graveyard, which I guess is a good bit of drop off to where there's a number of graveyards that are kind of blocking if anybody's going to be shooting or sniping him. So sniping him. So Elijah makes his way through this graveyard, and we have this big, huge, massive SUV that comes smashing through the gate. So everybody gets out of the car. Emil alerts Mr. Zenon that the safety is on. So as Elijah makes further his way through the graveyard in a crazed, heaving pace, because of course, like with him running and him breathing hard. But anyways, so Elijah making his way through this graveyard has Zenon get his laser sight out to try to figure out if he can pop off Elijah. At some point, Zenon goes on and pops off some statues, and Elijah gets a red dot in the head, but it dodges him, it misses him. So at some point, with the motorcyclists that are smacking into Elijah, kind of stopping him kind of a little bit here and there, but Zenon goes on and clips Elijah in the leg, and we would of course have Emil that's stating to Zenon, okay, finish him, like kill him off. Zenon is to, I guess, be a little bit of gun shy here, and doesn't want to go on and kill this man. And eventually, Emil is getting more and more upset. It's like, well, hey, like, you paid us $500,000 to kill a man, so do it. Like, if anything, show us that you're alive. So Emil goes on and turns to Pickens like, why didn't this guy just go fishing then? Because that would have made a heck of a lot more sense. So as the guys are being distracted and Elijah disappears, all of a sudden, as Zenon is making his way through the graveyard, Elijah pounces on him and grabs the gun away from him, starts to shoot into Elijah, not exactly killing him, but eventually that's saved for Emil, who walks over the body and shoots him dead afterwards. Elijah starts popping off shots to Emil and Pick, and then runs off. So here's where Emil says this is why they always have the hunters pay ahead of time so they can kill them off if this does not go the way they want it to. So they kill Zenon off, and then Emil is telling Pick like, okay, like let's kind of wrap this up. Like if anything, go on and get to him because I don't want to be running off trying to get to this guy all night. So we find Elijah making his way through town, jumping on top of cars, asking for help. He'd come to find a number of people walking by with these coffee cups, asking for help. No one's seeing him. Nothing more than a homeless man. There's one guy that goes on and has a cup fall out of his hand, and he purposely, even though he realizes that the cup is empty, he picks it up anyways to just keep continuing walking with the cup. It makes no sense to me. But anyways, so we have these cars and these motorcycles all making their way to find where Elijah is. And we continue to have Elijah who's desperately asking help for everybody. And every time that these people are just to see this guy, they see him as a homeless man and not much else. At one point, Elijah grabs this man who I would know from like the Spider-Man films or any Sam Raimi project, and he would be screaming back at Elijah to say, "Hey man, I don't have any change." What does that even connect with whatever he's saying? But anyways, so Pick goes on, gets out of the car, or pops his head and weapon out of the car to then see Elijah, who has tried to go into a bar and all kinds of places, and eventually to be finding that they're closed. So, with Elijah having nowhere to go, no one to help him, he just makes his way in the middle of the road, looking down at Pick, realizing that he's dead at this point, because I guess he's just completely given up. Or he's too tired to do anything but just stand there and take the bullets at this point. So Pick blasts away at Elijah, dropping him down on the ground. And so Pick just hovers over the body, which is so strange of a scene here, but I guess like Pick doesn't care. Like if anything, the cops aren't to have been making their way to this scene of the crime. So Pick hovers over the body, takes his knife, cuts the belt with the $10,000, and takes it with him because this guy is dead. So the next thing we see is Chance looking over Elijah's body as it's now in a body bag. And he's taking enough time to take his sweet goodbyes as he has tears in his eyes, looking at Nat. And as Chance makes his way to Detective Marie and Nat, we have a moment here where I think Nat like kisses Chance on the cheek or something. Like maybe she just hugs him. Like I'm not quite sure exactly what happens there, but um, like there's a tender moment that's kind of going on there that I guess can see that eventually they're kind of warming themselves up from eventually being a possible chance of couple here. But anyways, yeah, I remember the girl that's Nat in this movie. I remember her from Witchblade. Maybe at some point I'll probably go on and I'll review Witchblade. Um, Let me know in the comments below if this might be something of a show that you want me to cover. But if anything, we probably got lost in the weeds of me doing this for so long that probably people haven't gone on to be this late in the review, anyways. Um, but whatever, I'm just saying random, I guess. So the next thing we see here is Poe. Poe is to make his way to his car, realizing that he's going to get out of Dodge here because he knows he's going to be killed off. Because he had given information to, of course, Chance that would probably lead to his death. So Poe gets a number of briefcases to get into his car, scrambling and looking around. Poe is to kind of look around to feel that something is at unease here, where if anything, he's looking around to see if anybody's going to be coming after him. As Poe gets into his car, he gets a shotgun to the face, and we have Pick that goes on and says, like, Randall, uh, you're not leaving without saying goodbye. And Poe ends up saying that it was to have found out that his mother was sick and that he was going to call uh, Pick to explain this to him. And Pick was like, well, yeah, of course you were. Of course you were. And then shortly thereafter that, he shoots him with the shotgun and murdering him. So Pick goes on and tosses a shell out of his shotgun. And at this same time, we have Detective Marie, Chance, and Nat that I guess are also making their way to Poe's office, conveniently with a police car instead of a normal civilian car. That's the one thing that I was like, okay, why is this detective driving in a police car? That was probably a head scratcher if nothing else in this movie. That had to have been. So as soon as he look at the car with the blood spray, they realize that something has gone down here. So Marie, Nat, and Chance all get out of the car, and Pick is to start firing off the shotgun, which then has to, of course, Detective Marie to have gotten blasted. And it seems that Pick is not alone. He has a number of men with him that are to be the motorcycle guys. So as a number of shots are getting fired here, most of them I think are from Pick anyways. We'd have Chance that is kind of just rolling his way from like the back of from the back trunk of this car to where Detective Marie is, so that way um, he can get her gun as she falls, and he grabs her just in time to get her gun to fire off some bullets of this Jeep car driving by that has these guys from before that had beaten down Chance and are having half their body hanging out of the car, trying to fire a machine gun at this car that Chance is to be being protected by. So as Chance starts to fire off shots of his pistol, Nat is trying to take care of Marie as best she can, but eventually it's going to be a losing battle. Detective Marie is going to die here. So as Chance now having the gun starts to make his way to be jumping on top of cars to fire at this Jeep passing by. And further going on and blasting into other motorcyclists that are also kind of passing by here. And here is where we have the high kick, where Chance goes on and he kicks the motorcyclist, dropping him down, and he takes not only his motorcycle but also takes his weapons. So Chance goes on to explain to Nat, like, hey, you need to get on this motorcycle. If anything, like, leave the detective. She's already dead. It's too late. So the two of them get on the motorcycle and they drive off. So as Chance is being hunted down by these motorcycle men, we have a scene here where Chance is telling Nat to hold on to the handles so that way to kind of keep the motorcycle running, and Chance goes on and whips out the gun and starts blasting away at the motorcycle guys, and an explosion starts happening consistently. There's at one point where Chance ends up ramming into this wall full of boxes, and so we cut to both Chance and Nat that at some point end up getting to this roadblock uh, of this bridge, and now they have to make it to this showdown. Uh, of this SUV van and full of goons, and of course Chance. Chance kept popping wheelies, and at some point Natalie had fallen off the motorcycle. So here is why Chance is to be kind of all alone when he does this stunt. Because what happens is Chance goes on, whips out this gun, and then gets further, like, to the point to where he has his feet like we see here, and is to pull out the gun and fire at the car to try to kill all the goons. And then he's basically playing chicken with these guys. As soon as he finally has to go on and try to kill all the men in this vehicle, he then rolls off of the top of the car and is seemingly unscathed. And shortly thereafter that, the car explodes after that happens. We had the motorcycle that was kind of leaking gas anyways, so the whole motorcycle was kind of pointless anyways, so it didn't matter what happened to it. So shortly thereafter that, we would have the Jeep that has Pick and the guys that were hurting Chance before, and we also have Emil that has his own specialty gun that has to get like these weird huge bullets that he has to fire. He has to like kind of place into the gun. It's kind of strange. It's kind of an old fashioned, interesting looking gun. So, and Emil is firing at Chance, and it kind of hits this cone like thing, and so as Chance and Nat are realizing that they're in jeopardy here, the longer that they stay on this bridge, Chance is to jump off the bridge and land onto this train that conveniently has uh, on its cars these cardboard things to kind of conveniently fall on, anyways. So Chance is telling Nat, "Hey, yeah, you're a woman. You want to go first?" And Nat's like, "Huh?" So the two of them fall together onto this, uh, on again to this car full of boxes. So as Emil points out his gun, hoping that he could probably hit either one of them. He realizes that he can't. So Emil says to Pick that they'll have one last hunt after all, and if anything, they'll have to go on and they'll have to get a slew of hunters that they can call at the last minute to get this hunt together. So we have Pick that notices the trail of mud and says that uh, that Chance and Nat are to be a couple hours ahead of them, but if anything, he's to track them down, and he knows exactly where they're going. So here's where we get this helicopter coming in with a bunch of these hunters, and so Emil is going on and telling these guys how exceptional Chance is, and if anything, if they're to go on and kill him, then they won't have to go on and they won't have to pay to do this hunt. Uh, because if anything, if they kill Chance, like consider uh, that um, their pay for this game will be free. So as Chance and Nat start to make their way to what looks like a kind of a swamp-like area, because this is New Orleans, so it'd have a swamp. Uh, Chance is going on and making his way to his uncle's cabin here, where his uncle is kind of in seclusion. So yeah, we're kind of getting into much more of a swampy, uh, kind of jungle-ish like area, somewhat. Uh, just to have some kind of interesting backgrounds here, and also to try to better represent New Orleans because this place is supposed to be taking place there. So, which from memory, I think swamp places are very expensive. Uh, that's why shows like Swamp Thing ended up getting canceled because swamp areas are very expensive to film in. But anyways, so uh, Nat ends up getting concerned about alligators and all kinds of animals, and Chance tells her like, "Hey, I guess if it's to kind of make you feel better, then I guess worry about that instead of these assassins trying to kill us." So as they make their way through the swamp, we have this helicopter zooming by. So Chance ends up explaining why they're going the path of where they're going to meet up with his uncle, and Chance knows that his uncle is to be a skilled tracker, but it seems that he knows that also that Emil has a tracker that is just as good as his uncle. So also Chance explains that they have a kind of couple hours ahead of these guys because he knows um, a little bit of tracker information, and and Nat is very confused about where they're going, and she's asking the, if there is an easier track or trail or whatever they should be going on, and Chance says this is the trail. So as Nat is to kind of rest herself here for a moment, Chance ends up asking uh, Nat to close her eyes and if she trusts him. And she's like, "Well, of course I trust you." So she closes her eyes. Come to find out, as Nat is to be closing her eyes, there's to be a snake making her way to her face. And Chance grabs the snake just in time and pulls it away from Nat. as Nat opens her eyes, she begins to freak out because obviously Snake. And so Chance is to then take this snake, weirdly smack it, and then he punches it to, I guess, weirdly knock it out. And so Nat asks if, like, hey, did you just kill that? And this is like the dumbest thing of this movie, which he knocks out a snake. Pa! Like, we have to have a weird punching sound for the snake that makes no sense. It's stupid. But if anything, it's the funniest thing of this movie. So, Chance says that he's going to make this snake into a trap for the guys that come in next. And he's going to go on and rip off the rattlesnake part of the snake so it doesn't rattle, so it doesn't make noise, so people won't go on and won't find it so easily. So he's going to set up a trap, and so we have these hunter guys that are making their way through this woods. And what happens is one of the hunters, which I don't know exactly who these hunters' names really are, if anything, very few of them I think have names anyways. Um, like uh, the big massive guy that we'd go on and see in so many Arnold films, like his name seemingly is Steven, but everyone else, like I don't think really legitimately has much of a name as far as these hunters go. Um, yeah. Plus, also, there's not a whole lot of actual faces in the IMDb credits anywheres, so it's kind of hard to tell. So, if anything, maybe when I go on and I might just have to describe some of these hunters. So, we have one of the hunters that goes on to fall on or fall. He kind of hits this little bit of uh this line here, and here's where the snake goes lunging in on him and ends up snagging him in the face. Pitt goes on to find the hunter, grab the snake away from him, but all is lost. This guy is basically dead anyways. So Mio goes on and takes a gun to him and then talks to Jerome and tells everybody to just kind of watch their step. So now we have Uncle Duvet. Uncle Duvet is to be kind of going on and creating some moonshine here, and it seems that he's kind of perfected whatever moonshine he's doing because he's very satisfied by the moonshine he just consumed. And here is where Chance and Nat are whistling their way. Well, Chance is whistling his way, and the more that Chance is whistling, the more it doesn't seem that Uncle Duvet knows exactly what this is. So when Chance and Nat come closer and closer, then finally Uncle Duvet is to be hugging on Chance and then hugging on to Natalie, and all of a sudden, like these people that he has seemingly no idea who he is, all of a sudden he's hugging and very loving on them as if he's known them all their lives. It does make any sense here. So Uncle Duvet nurses Chance back to health here by wrapping up his arm, and Uncle Duvet is to know that there are people coming for Chance as he weirdly can smell them somehow, as if he's probably like Wolverine, but even Wolverine, like, man, that's pretty good sense. So so Chance goes on and asks for a gun from Uncle Duvet, and he's like, "Well, if anything, a gator had eaten mine, but If anything, I have a shotgun that used to be yours that's still kind of stowed away and it's all dusty and hopefully it still fires. Hopefully it doesn't jam. So Duvet throws the gun at Chance and he catches it. And he takes a way long amount of time, like this review I'm going on and taking here to talk about every bit of this, to just be looking at the gun, and it looks like he's gonna the gun. He looks like he's gonna blow the gun. Like it just seems like he's gonna go on and he's gonna the gun and or do something with it. Like I don't know. Like is he gonna jerk the gun? Like what is he gonna do? Make love to the gun? What is he gonna do? Anyways, so Natalie goes on and looks at Chance looking at the gun, and it's like come on, like kind of jogging him back to reality here. So Uncle Deve asks Chance, are these guys after him because of business or pleasure? And Chance is like, well, a little of both. So so they get on their horseback and they're planning everything out, and Uncle Deve is to love the company, and so as they tell everyone to be careful and they hug it out here, and Uncle Deve is telling Nat that he'll be all that Chance will be all right. We then get in all these men uh, that are making their way to Uncle Deve's house to give a little knock knock. So we come to find that the big behemoth of Stephen is to make his way into the house, gets to the door, blasts all the way through it. You would have think that maybe he would have gone on and maybe done a little bit of a check if anyone was actually in there before blasting away, but whatever. So Stephen goes on and blasts through the house and tells everybody that the sign is clear. Shortly thereafter, that we have Uncle Duvet that takes from his God, what is it called? The flask? Yeah, there we go. He takes a swig of that, and as he hands it to Nat, it's like, hey, don't spill that. So Uncle Duvet whips out a bow and fires off into the place that is to have his moonshine, and things are to, of course, light up and explode. We'd come to find that this is, of course, when we would start to see a obvious person that is wearing like this kind of coverall to protect themselves from being on fire. Um, yeah, maybe not the best camera angle, but like I guess at some point for a movie budget, you at some point need to see some kind of flaws. So yeah, at some point we actually see a guy who's kind of getting burnt up. That we actually see he's getting like protective stuff. So that's a little flaw in this film. We'd go on to see like other people who are getting put on fire, and we'd have guys like Lupaki, the hunter from earlier in this film that we bring him back here. He's going on and he's dousing one of the guys out so that way they don't get in. Uh, of course, have flame on them. So we'd come to find that the moonshine being put on fire is to lead to also this stick of dynamite that ends up getting fused up here. And as shots are being fired and people are realizing that there's going to be a bigger explosion going on here, which it completely destroys the entire Uncle Duvet's house. We have Uncle Debate, Nat, and eventually, uh, oh, we have Uncle Debate and Nat getting on horseback, and they're riding off, and before the uncle leaves, he goes on and does this war cry. More explosions continue to happen here. Uh, as one of the hunters go on and start trying to shoot and kill the uncle, we'd have a meal that goes on and tells the hunter, hey, that's not what we're here for. We're after chance. We're not here after these guys. It doesn't matter if they survive. We have to get back on hard target. So Emil goes on and calls that hunter an effing buffalo, and we then go on to have Pick, who's going on and doing his tracking and figuring out where exactly uh, Chance had went off to 15 minutes ago, and that he's on horse. Pick and Emil are fighting after if Pick should go on and be on the ground or should be in the sky to try to figure out where Chance is, and Pick says that he will go on and be in the air in a helicopter to try and track him down. So the next thing we see is Chance wielding a shotgun on this horseback with Pick being on this helicopter trying to figure out where Chance is. So as the helicopter flies by and the hunters all start getting their guns out of the helicopter, we'd start to see that Chance is blasting away at the helicopter with his shotgun, and the more and more this firing starts happening, some of the hunters from the helicopter start to get killed off here, and eventually Pick ends up downing Chance's horse, and now Chance is left to be on foot. All the hunters end up getting out of the helicopter. All of the motorcycle men are just kind of left to just kind of wait to see what's going on here. So Chance makes his way to this abandoned warehouse, this factory looking place. So he runs to this area, and we have these motorcycles that are chasing after him. And further along, that Chance goes into this factory to run around. These motorcycle men are following him. So we have the men that go on and open up all these trunks of all these cars to get all these weapons and to armor up and get all their bullets and ammo. So Chance also goes on and takes the time to hide behind a pillar and starts to put more bullets in his shotgun to kind of cock it and get ready. So at a point, there seemingly be so many effing birds that are in this scene by the third act here. So there is at one point where there's a motorcyclist that just kind of stops and kind of parks himself for a little bit, and these birds start crapping on him. And so Chance goes on and takes the time of calling this motorcyclist a pigeon, and as the motorcyclist gets his gun out, we would have Chance that takes this gas canister, throws it into the air, fires it, and then the whole motorcycle and gas tank explodes because we need more explosions in this movie. So Uncle Duvet and Nat are talking here, as it seems that Nat is to kind of take this turn and stop. Uncle Duvet is convincing that they need to make their way to the sheriff, but Nat is kind of stubborn, and she's taking this horse to make her way back to find out what happens with Chance, because she's concerned for him. Which in turn, the uncle is like, okay, well, I guess if we're not going with the sheriff, I guess I'll go on and I'll just follow her. So we now have Emil that's taking a moment to kind of take a lay of the land and give us kind of an update of of where we are in the film. Like Emil has to go on and explain how wounded how wounded Chance is, and how he's had to run miles of country, and and how he's being outnumbered 20-1, and how everything is just stacked against Chance and there's no way for him to win, and how really Chance at this point is just a bug to be crushed. And at this point, like, Meal and Pick are kind of looking at one another, and they're assessing whether or not that they are angry at one another. So they make their way into the warehouse, and here's where Chance and these hunter guys are going on and having a gunfight here. And Chance starts popping them off, and we get further to this part of the show where there's this kind of weird bit of artwork here, like amusement park, like pieces that are kind of visually interesting here. We have this giant face that kind of brings us into these like weird and wacky uh like bits of environments going on to this warehouse. Like, this warehouse has kind of stored all of this kind of very unusual artwork of things um, that is put together for this third act to just kind of be visually interesting. So after Chance has gone on to kind of really start to kill a number of people, Emil is joking with Pick about, hey, we could walk away now and we can be in Mexico in 5 hours. And how Emil is talking about how Pick has gone soft. So we have Chance that is on this what looks like a Pegasus, or looks like a weird animal that he's riding off of, that has a chain that is like having him go derailing down. And Chance is firing off at all these guys while doing this, and at some point there is a fire that gets bursted into the area, even to the point to where Emil, his back is just covered, and it legit has Emil that's on fire right now. I thought it would be his body double, but no, it's legitimately the guy, and he's thrusting off his coat and screaming in agony as he's like in flame. So Emil, being the lead villain here, is very upset that guys like the Lupaki, or the guy who had gone on to have like the arrows that were firing off these arrows in this whole movie. Emil is just kind of upset that Lupaki's not going on and going on and killing this guy. Finish him. Go after him. So I guess maybe it wasn't a Pegasus. Maybe it was just a duck, or maybe it's like a bird of some kind. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, so now, as Emil is to be very upset, hoping that Emil is going to make a meal out of Chance himself. See what I did there? And it was stupid. So Nat and Chance are getting off their horses to make their way in the warehouse themselves, seeing if there's any way for them to go on and help out Chance, even though Natasha isn't even armed. So Chance goes on and meets up with one of the motorcycle guys and takes them out. I think he puts a shotgun to them and he hits them with it. And takes a pistol of theirs, and here's where he meets up with Steven. He blasts into Steven, and then he apologizes how he ruined his shirt, which is kind of a funny gag. So next up we have a motorcycle guy, and of course Chance just guns him down so easily. The uncle and Nat ask what do the two of them want to do, and as they're kind of overhearing the action going on here. So the uncle goes on to find one of the hunters, and so he puts an arrow into him. And we then have Nat that is kind of scoping the scene. She grabs a pistol herself, finds the guy that had beaten down Chance in the early part of this movie, and she guns him down. And the uncle goes on and grabs the gun uh from Nat and says like, "Hey, you don't do any of this killing. Like I was gonna do all this killing." I guess to try to protect this girl's innocence. Also, with the way that she killed that guy, like just her eyes, just alone, just said that she really went through when she killed that guy. Um, so Chance is now Tarzaning it up. He has found a rope and he's swinging from it while killing more guys. Here's where he goes on and kills the guy who's the effing buffalo from the 4, and he guns him down in the chest, popping him off and killing him, sadly enough. Then we have uh Polaki here. God, I want to try to get this right. Yeah. Uh Polaki Lopaki. Lopaki is to be seemingly his name. So Lopaki is to be firing off these arrows, and Nat throws into the air a gun for Chance to grab. So Chance now has 2 guns. So Chance kicks down one guy and then uh, kicks Lopaki and guns both of them down. Chance makes his way back to Nat and his uncle and asks what exactly they're doing here, and the uncle's like, "Well, hey, we came to help." So Chance comes to find that he ends up getting kind of cornered here as he ends up getting behind this dumpster as these guys are all firing around him. And we're getting ever so closer to facing off with Chance and Pick here. This is where soon Pick is going to die. So there's a lot of explosions and fireworks kind of going off right now in this fight here. There's a one point where Chance goes on and kills a guy, and he falls down this flight of stairs, which is kind of cool because I always like that kind of idea. So we have the moment here between Chance and Pick where they go up against this wall, and they talk about how they've been looking all over for or Pick says how he's been looking all over for Chance, and and how there was not any feelings wanted to get hurt. If anything, this scene is very similar to, I guess, Face Off, the Nicolas Cage John Travolta film, where they're both like hugging the mirror, and then John Travolta's character says, "How about we just kill ourselves?" And then they start firing off here. It's kind of the same scene. Like, I don't know if John Woo had anything to do with Face Off, but if anything, kind of like just kind of reminded me of that scene there. So they fire off at one another, and they don't hit one another. Uh, but if anything, Chance goes on and finds that there's hunters nearby him that are trying to uh, throw grenades at him. So Chance goes on and he jumps out of the area that he is. Explosions goes off, and that leads then Chance to slide, gunning down Pick, and Chance goes on and takes his leg as Pick is kind of like following or kind of hunching over. Chance gets his leg up as Pick is falling with a grenade in his hand, and so Chance kicks Pick off as he dies, and we find that Chance's Uncle DeVay, had gotten hit, and so Nat asks if he's okay, and he says, like, I can't dance, but I can get up. So Emil goes on and finds Pick's dead body, and he is like, "Ugh!" Like, he gets up and he's like, "Ugh!" Like, it looks like he's just kind of like straining as if he had had a hard turd come out of his body. But if anything, I really like the really huge strain of the agony of his like best friend dying here. Like, it just looked really cool. So like, it was not a joke that it looked like this face was stupid looking. Like, I thought it was like, yeah, like it like really to show that this guy was really upset that his best friend was also to have died here. But it was also just like, you can make fun of it also. So Uh, what the heck? Um, uh, anyways, so come on. Let me pause. I also missed the point where uh the uncle had gone on to arrow the guy in the neck. That thing was pretty cool. It looked like Friday the 13th. Kevin Bacon had like an arrow through the neck, and then he died from that. But anyways, next thing we see here, Chance is going on and taking off his dress shirt here, and he's putting this grenade within his shirt so that he has something heavy, so he can go on and kind of bat at these goons to kind of knock them down, because he needs to go on and he needs to take some guns from them. So eventually, it finally all comes to a head that Chance is going to face off with Meal. And I love the dialogue that's actually going on between the two of them as they're trying to get to one another. How Chance goes on and asks Emil, how does it feel to get hunted? And you tell me, like, Emil still thinks that he's gonna win here. Um, Emil says that he's gone on to fire so many bullets in so many countries of the world that that's what kind of gives him the more advantage here over Chance, because he seems to be more skilled. And Emil even goes on to say that he can't be killed, and says that there's no winner here, that he doesn't see one, da 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 da. So Emil goes on and tells Chance to take his best shot, and so Chance goes on and comes flying. He comes to this big, huge flip, and goes on to meet with Emil, and Emil ends up grabbing a bow from Uncle Duvet, stabs him into the chest, and then grabs Natalie and holds her hostage because we have to do the crappy villain thing where the villain has to go on and hold Natalie hostage with this arrow to her neck. So Emil eventually says that Chance has the shotgun and he won't be able to hit Emil without hitting this girl, so he has the wrong weapon for the job. So Chance goes on and has a grenade on him. So he takes all the shotgun shells out of the shotgun, drops it onto the ground, and what happens here is while Emil is distracted with having Nat arm his gun, Chance goes on and runs and kicks Emil as he's getting his gun ready. And this is kind of a cool visual because it's like Chance has to really run really, really quickly to be able to beat this gun firing off. So Chance kicks Emil, knocks him down, and what happens by the end of this is, and Chance is like fighting with Emil. We have Chance that is remembering every single person that has kind of died along the way of this movie because of Emil, because of what all he's done. And so by the end of this, Chance goes on after beating down Emil. Chance goes on and puts this grenade into Emil's pants and tells him that hunting season is over. And kind of takes him out to where he like falls over. So as Chance is down on the as Emil is down on the ground, he realizes that there's a grenade in his pants, so as he tries to pull it out, he goes on to undo the grenade and he thinks, oh, I've been able to defuse this grenade, it won't go off. All of a sudden there's this spark that goes into this grenade and it explodes anyways. So Chance makes his way back to Nat and his uncle, and his uncle is fine because he comes to find out that the flask had protected him from getting stabbed in the heart. So the uncle is very upset that he had lost his alcohol, but if anything, it's nice that he's okay. And so they all walk off here into the credits, and really that's how this movie ends. Whew! So with that said, it kind of sucks that I was gonna have to fuse clips together, because when I was to pause this here, ended up just eating the thing and it just stopped. But luckily, I hopefully kept that footage, so I don't have to do this again. I don't want to sound at any point of me doing this that I'm not ungrateful that I get to do this and I have so many people following this channel, and hoping that I'm going to do something that'll interest them, and they taking the time to invest in watching these videos for however long. I'm so grateful that there's a good number of people that have subscribed on the channel, but I wished people were interested in the projects that I do. I wish that I could go on and find projects that people will be the most interested in. It's just very hard for me to figure that out. Like, if anything, like there's not a lot of communication that I'm given. Besides like the polls that I make. Um, but even that, like, it's very hard to narrow it down of what I should do. So if anything, like, I'm continuing to guess, or I'm just continuing to just be like, well, I guess selfishly, I'll just be doing these projects because what else could I do? And then like the channel doesn't do well. I 500 plus people that subscribe to this, but I don't know how I can best um, serve those people. I don't know how I can best uh, best help people find interesting projects and whatever. Like, I don't know um, how I can go on and find projects that I enjoy that people like also. And I know also that it'll probably get to the point where like things will get worse, people will unsubscribe, and like I lose people just because I don't know what to do. But um and I don't know how to answer that either. Uh like, if anything, I guess maybe because I would have at some point had videos that were interesting to people, and so they just kind of hung on for the long haul. But like, or maybe my reviews are just different enough than everyone else. But even that, like, I can't say that every one of these reviews no one else in the whole entire planet of Earth is not doing. But like, at least it's much different than a lot of these other reviewers that are just to go on and basically give you the most generic of genre kind of choices, which are to be like the no brainers of what to do with reviews and or whatever. Um, I don't know, like it. I think at this point is to also just be like, man, I wish I could have gone on and gotten a way bigger following. Like, it would have been great if like the one really big video, if I would have gotten that whole big following, and then like what I would be doing now as issues and whatever is not doing well, like it wouldn't have exactly mattered if I would have been able to have amassed a bigger following. Because at least it's like, oh well, like I'll go and I'll just find something that eventually will. Um, but yeah, but like I don't know, it's getting harder and harder to keep saying it's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to give up, but it's also just getting more unrealistic to just be like, what am I going to use on the channel that people will be the most interested by? Like, I've gotten lucky, but also times I've made a lot of mistakes. Um, like, I haven't capitalized on a lot of things. So, if anything, I guess that's egg on me, and that's just I've made too many mistakes and not capitalized on a number of things that did well. But hopefully we'll have some kind of turnaround. I need to get back into anime. I think that was the one um, thing that I should have I should have went back into. Uh, the whole problem is like I don't know. Well, like I have a feeling of right. I poll people. I'm like, okay, what are you most interested in? But even that, like, when I would go on and get a majority of mass number of people that seem to profoundly like a certain thing, and then I do those things, like I guess I made a mistake about the choice of which that I had made of how to connect with that because I'm like, you guys said that you all liked this, but then when I do the review of this, like, yeah, no one cares about it. Um, or I'm just still stuck, still trying to find new people. So I just have to get lucky on YouTube whether or not that people will be interested in something. But uh, I've gone on to tie Hard Target into other projects. So I don't know if this is going to do that well, but at least um, at least I tried doing this. At least I've come back and done some projects. Um, lately I've just been very busy. Uh, in all honesty, yesterday I was trying to get some workouts in. Plus, I was kind of very busy with some Timu stuff that finally paid off. So I was trying to figure out what to use some Timu credits on to try to get the best possible um, outfits for future thumbnails. Because I'm trying to get a game of God of War shirt right now, so I can hope that when the God of War show comes out, I've a shirt to connect that with. Um, there's a lot of cool things on Timu that I think a lot of people don't even know exist, but I had gone on to do a previous video about that before, where I just like, hey, this is the things that I either want to hope to obtain uh, the longer I do this Timu thing, which eventually the whole structure of how they do things is kind of drastically changed. So I'm gonna get way lesser items eventually, but it'll be at a point where that will run out. So if anything, I had to be very picky and very finicky about the things that I chose. Or there were certain things where I just went on and just been like, I'll just get this because like I think this is the coolest thing on Timu um, that like I can use it and I can wear it and it's cool. I like it. Like there's a Spider-Man Future Foundation shirt that I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Um, I don't think ever there's going to be an actual MCU thing that ties to that, or it'll be the same looking shirt anyways. But at least I'll have that, and I'll be happy that I got that. Um, but yeah, like if anything, there was a lot of projects that I should have done on the channel. Obviously, um, that I was just so set in my ways to just think like, oh yeah, I can just go on and I can just do all these kind of obscure titles and I'll have a bit of fun with them. And then I was naive about how well that they would really do. Like Mummy's Alive was just like, man, I'm hoping that that really fires off because that actually was a cool looking project. Because I'd really look at the numbers of YouTube before I justify going into anything, and then I would go on and I would look to see. It's yeah, like I guess like what I thought would be like a cool um, thing that would do really well. Because I'm still naively uh, just delusioning myself to think that well, maybe my thumbnail is better than everyone else, or maybe um, my this is better than anyone. Maybe like me choosing to do this and no one else is really doing it. Maybe it's the better choice. Yeah, like if anything, um, it also just kind of feels like I probably at this point should have used YouTube as a weird jumping off point to do something else to be more successful, and then come back to YouTube with that success, which is strange. Because I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. But I don't know. At this point, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to see what works. And try to make better choices. There's a temptation for me to try to go on and maybe cover one other project besides just this one. Uh, but that was going to probably be Project Hail Mary, and that's 2.5 hours. I don't think I'm going to be awake enough to be able to do that in this. So, yeah. Uh, if anything, I probably could go on and maybe squeak past doing another project, which is a lesser runtime, and be able to maybe get that out, but I doubt it. But at least, I'm just trying to figure out something. I'm trying to figure out something to do for the channel, for the future. I have no idea. Like, I think the bigger problem is that I have too many ideas rather than me having none. But it honestly feels that every one of them are all pointless. Uh, so that's what kind of gets me to, like, I want to be so hopeful, and I want to, and that's the whole thing about, like, YouTube was always to be like up and downs. So, like, I probably shouldn't care about how bad things are going, because there's always an upswing. There's always like, hey, I could just pick this one lucky project and it does 1,000 views and woohoo. Um, but yeah, but like the more and more I do YouTube, the more it just feels like a gambling addiction, and I just can't stop. Like, one more hit, and we'll get back to better days. One more hit, and we'll go on, um, and we'll change it all around. All I need is just one really good video, and yeah, I can't stop. So if anything, the one thing I always like wanted to hope that could have come from me doing a YouTube channel was I hope that I could go on and pitch ideas that eventually will actually turn into something. Because I, like a number of other YouTubers, uh, was to want to use YouTube as like a creative space. That eventually it's like, well, yeah, if only someone could have gone on and heard this, then and liked what I had to say, maybe I can finally go on and do something outside of YouTube, um, that I can share with you guys with. Uh, and yeah, like I don't think that's really delusions of being overly naive that anything like that is really going to happen. But like because it's all about track record. It's all about like, well, hey, do you have any experience in creating a show or creating a movie or creating a this or creating that? Like, do you have any writing experience? Do you have da da da? Like, you'd probably have to go to college and do all these things to eventually have anybody look at you to be like, yeah, that's going to be the guy that's going to be pitching the next SpongeBob or the next this or the next that show. That's also very delusions of grandeur to have me think that I would go on and be able to pitch a level of a SpongeBob level show where that has had huge success and been on for freaking ever. But because the way of which immediately would be my pitches of like, oh, maybe a supernatural show or maybe yeah, like a supernatural show doesn't go on and have the legs to really last forever. Um, like there are supernatural shows that have had a long shelf life, like a Buffy's or Angels or whatever, but like not a lot of them have a long series of existence. Uh, but anyways, I'm gonna get out of here so I can go on and put this and attach it to the other video, so that way it can go on and upload this. Even though for all these projects that have come out just very recently, um, I will like I wanted to push that these projects were ones that like going on what I felt, and they didn't feel forced. They felt like I could have fun doing them. Because there was a lot of projects when I started this channel was just me forcingly putting them out there because I knew they'd be successful. But then eventually it would just start to run out of me just knowing what to do next. And so it's gotten to the point where like I still have options of things to pull from, but they're at such a rung and level and whatever that like you start to run out of like your A material and you're just kind of sifting through like the trash heap of whatever's left. And like I think at some point like there probably are still good movies to put out that I'm not looking at that I probably should. But also 500 people 500 plus some odd people um, need to also be interested in it or otherwise like it's easily going to die. um, but it's trying to figure out where best to be like, shouldn't this project work? No? Great. Hence why lately I've kind of further and further been away and gotten lazier just because like nothing seems to be working. Um, plus also there's been days where I actually been busy and I've been focusing on working out. I'm trying to get back and to lose weight because I had gotten a little bit heavier uh, since my extreme time of like just consistent just losing weight up to a point where I just started to get like sick feeling every day when I started to get too skinny. But I'm trying to lose back some weight so that way eventually I can go on. Because Timu, I have a bunch of things coming from Timu. So hopefully uh, those will go on, and because I have a costume that I hope I'm gonna fit in. I hope I don't look fat when I wear it. So I'm trying to get slimmer just so we can look better in things. I can obviously look in pictures lately where I look fat. So I'm just like, well, it's time to get the work in. It's time to look thinner so that we look better in photos and whatever. But anyways, um, I need to get out of here because if anything, it's gonna just go on forever, uh, and I'm just wasting all of your time. So I apologize. It's time for me to get out of here. Thank you for watching this. I hope to come up with something more interesting for you in the future. Man, I wish that I can come up with one movie or show that would do anywhere as well as the one video that is the most successful thing on here. Like it goes from like 50K to like 8,000. Like, like why couldn't I have gone on and found things that could have been so, like, I would have been happy if I could have gone on and found like a way to at least have like, yeah, maybe sometimes I'd get a zero video, but yeah, there'd sometimes where it'd be 2,000. Sometimes I'd have a 10 viewed thing. Sometimes I'd have 20,000. Sometimes like, even if it was wildly like the numbers were all over the place, that would make sense rather than me just consistently going from like 50,000 video views when I started here, and eventually went downhill from there. Um, but at least that would have made more sense if it was more random numbers than the just consistent, like I'm getting a whole bunch of just like zeros or tens or whatever. Um, like at least like that would make more sense, wouldn't you think? But I don't know. Maybe I guess for when there is a failing YouTube channel, like then YouTube just kind of goes out of its way to just overall just kind of kill your channel if it's not being successful at a certain point when things are just going down. It just kills it more instead of trying to figure out ways to get your videos traction somewhere. But anyways, goodbye everybody. Goodbye everybody.